Hey everyone, my guest today is Anthony Edwards. Anthony is probably best known for his role as Dr. Mark Greene on the long running series ER, but currently he is starring on the Broadway in A Prayer for the French Republic. Other theater credits include Children of a Lesser God, A Month in the Country, Harvey, and many more. You may know him as Goose from the blockbuster feature film Top Gun, and earlier in his career, he was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He has starred in over 20 features, including, but not limited to, Revenge of the Nerds, Zodiac, The Client, Miracle Mile, Mr. North, The Sure Thing, Revenge of the Nerds. Again, I've said it twice. That's how much I love it. Heart Like a Wheel, and so many more. And recently in both Apple series WeCrashed and Netflix miniseries Inventing Anna. I'm going to let you Google him for all of the many other television credits, but he also directs and produces, and he is such an incredibly compelling artist. And I'm so honored to have you, Tony Edwards, on the podcast today. Hello.
Hello, hello. Nice to see you.
Gosh, it's so nice to see you. Um, you're one of these people who we feel has been living with us for so long, and I can only imagine during the course of your day how many different touchstones people have for sort of recognizing you. Is there a role that you feel like, oh, I know before they even say anything which they're going to talk about?
What you kind of find is like it depends where you are.
Okay.
Because, like, when I was for a long time, I lived on the Upper East Side, and that was just full ER people. A lot of angry older women who were like, "Why'd you leave the show?" And
They
it's
took
just
it
like they
really
felt real
personally.
ownership. Yeah, exactly. But I'm also a big. I have a huge. I'm a huge Formula One fan, which may be the thing that people don't know about me. But when I go to that world, it's all Top Gun. And when you're around cars and that whole world, and then in this kind of tech world, of course, Revenge of the Nerds. There's all this other, so it's kind of site specific depending on the world you're in.
That's so funny. I thought you were going to say in the tech world, we crash. This like more recent thing would be the thing, but no, no, just the
No,
computer, the basic computer
right.
of Revenge of the Nerds. So I feel like we were talking earlier when I knew you in an earlier uh, version of my life. You were on ER, and I feel like that was really one of the first kind of shows, like really long running with contemporaries of mine. It wasn't Dr. Kildare. It was like
Hmm.
Tony Edwards on the show. I knew you weren't really a doctor because I would see you off a soundstage as well. Would you be on an airplane and if something happened, would people start thinking that you could actually help them? And did you do enough episodes that you could perform some minor medical emergencies if necessary?
You'd think it would be like, there's no way that could happen because that's like the oldest joke in the book of I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. But I was actually on a flight where a flight attendant said to me, "Oh God, we wish you were here yesterday because we had a heart attack on the plane." And I was like, "Really? Wait, you guys want a fake doctor on the plane when
Well, it
someone
would
said
have
you
made
don't
the
want
heart
this?"
attack more fun. It would have made
Yeah,
it like at
exactly. A
least
little more.
a
Yeah,
better story. All
right.
right. So I want to talk about this extraordinarily beautiful play, Prayer for the French Republic, that you are doing right now. Coincidentally, Ari Brand, who's in the play with you, played my son in another beautiful play with Jewish
Oh,
themes called My Name is Asher Lev. So it was really lovely to see him in this heartbreaking role and you sort of as this really reliable source that kind of takes us through the play, both as narrator and inhabitant of the
hmm.
story at the same time. So I know that you recently had like a historic, iconic Broadway moment, saving Girl from the North Country for one performance. So you have been on Broadway since Children of a Lesser God, but talk about what it's like being off book, not during COVID, properly rehearsed, and joining this play that is really moving people really deeply at this very timely moment for this play. And how did you get involved?
Yeah, it's such a, I was lucky enough to see the play. Mare and I saw the play at City Center 2 years ago,
Mayor
and just
Winningham,
Mayor Winningham, my
obviously,
wife,
your
yeah,
lovely
my
bride.
wife, my bride, and and we saw this play and we were so moved by it. And of course, we're David Cromer fans, and Mare had seen Bad Jews. I'd seen Admission, so we already were fans of Josh Harmon as a playwright. Because when you hear dialogue like that and you hear and you see actors, you just get pulled in. And there we were during COVID into this 3 hour thing that we'd never seen before that was so moving. And I had, of course, at that time, no idea that I would ever have the opportunity to be in it. So I really saw it just as a pure audience fan. So I'd workshopped with David. We'd done a workshop last year, and Mare had worked with David and Tribes, and so we're all friends and know each other. And I thought his Proof of the Existence of God last year was like one of the best plays I've ever seen. And of course, Band's Visit. I mean, he's an amazing director. And so I mean, it was one of those calls where the agents were saying, "Oh, you've got an offer to do Prayer for the French Republic, give it a read and everything." I mean, I didn't have to read it. I knew I was going to do it the second it came up. And then to read it and have it early enough, it was a great experience because I had it in the summer. So we didn't start rehearsals till November. So I had months to be with the words and I had to learn to play piano and a little bit and get over my fear of singing. But what was exciting was that we had a group of actors. Half of them had done it. So a lot of the women in the show had done it at City Center. And there was about five, I think, of us men, 4 or 5 of us that are new to it. So rehearsals were really interesting because there were actors there that already had a feel and knew for it, but wanted to explore differently. And there was also a feel with the creators, David and Josh, but then also the lighting designer and the production designer and the sound designer, who all felt like it felt like with them, they were so eager, like they had unfinished business. Like they did it at City Center as best they could under those conditions, but they really wanted to bring it up. So when we came in for our, you know, once we got into the theater and you have that crazy intense tech week and then into previews, we were changing and rehearsing in previews all the kind of little minutia stuff of the transitions that really make for what appears to be just an effortless 3 hours, but it's so full of incredible expertise. And that's fun to be a part of. And the actors, it's a real love fest. I mean, we have
Backstage
11
as well
actors.
as on
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah. And because it's 11 actors that are all very different life experiences, different ages, and and yet it reminds me of ER in that the subject matter or the work is so much bigger than us that it's humbling and it makes for a really good, like, oh my God, if we could do this right together, we can do something special. And now, to go to work where 700 people show up expecting a good play and they get one is really fun because they start laughing and then they laugh and cry their way for the next 3 hours. And I mean, I just feel incredibly fortunate.
When you did ER, the subject matter that was bigger than you was saving lives, right? So if you were to describe kind of what, for the people who haven't seen the play yet, or
Sure.
may not get to because they don't live in
Yeah.
New York, what would you say the theme of the play is that is so deeply
Well,
affecting
it's
at
it's
this
a
moment?
deep, beautiful, smart, funny dive into the world of anti-Semitism and the history of, and the fact that this phenomenon of hate, of hatred, which is the core of anti-Semitism, is deeply rooted in our experience as human beings, whether you're Jewish or not, wherever you come from, that experience of hatred of other is so powerful and can have such horrible effects when let go. I mean, with such obvious examples, and the examples are so big that it's even hard for us to relate to. And I think that's what Josh does really well in the play is, I mean, I do a whole thing about talking about the Crusades. I mean, the Crusades were insane. And it's not to name the Catholic Church or these people, what we as people are capable of to do to other human beings. We see it on October 7th. We see it in Nazi Germany. We see in the way we as Americans treated an entire race. I mean, that the fact that, you know, the fact that Nazi Germany, Goebbels, all of those men in early Nazi time were studying how we treated blacks in our country to know how it is that you can actually control and eliminate or just control an other and race. And Josh, as a playwright, dives into that without judgment, just with truths from looking at 5 generations of a French family in Paris who own a piano store. Like, what?
I
Well,
know
this is,
it's so micro in exploring the macro of it.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the like hat trick of the play
right.
that you're just it's a naturalistic sort of modern contemporary play about this beautiful family living in this gorgeous Parisian apartment, and you want
Yeah,
to, it's like the French version of Nora Ephron. And then,
right,
right, and then you're like, oh wow, there's like penetrating within it is this fear that this
right.
family is having.
Right. And that generational fear that translates, and every family, like that's where, you know, I'm not Jewish. My wife is. Like, we all have different experiences. And like, you know, this play broke my heart, not because for any other reason other than the way a great Tennessee Williams play or Arthur Miller play breaks your heart, because they're just revealing truths in a really beautiful way. And that's when you go like, oh, right, you don't get writers like this a lot, because it's a very special combination that can actually look at something so specifically horrific and explore it from every different argument. I mean, my character is a devout atheist, I mean, he is just like, he really is of the like, if, it's religion's messed us up. I mean, look what happened, and here he is, a guy who, father saw the most horrific elements of being in a concentration camp in Auschwitz, and the father, who was the only surviving child, how did he raise his kids? He raised us, raised me, just not unlike my father, who was a World War II veteran, to like, don't trust in religion, don't trust in the Boy Scouts, don't trust in any group. Anytime a group of people get together, for people who've experienced trauma, it is you have the ability to get lost and hurt.
And the idea that in this play, so you have what Tony is describing is a play in which, and you also go back in time, you see this sort of Holocaust surviving side of the family that survived, returning home to Paris post trauma. You have Tony and his sister, played by the glorious Betsy Adam, who are raised by the son of a Holocaust survivor, although that
Yeah,
son was also in danger for a few years in his early childhood. And then you have, as you described, your sister in the play raised exactly as you were, as French, not as Jewish.
right,
And suddenly her son has found religion and what
right.
it is sort of for this new generation to be completely invested and interested in traditional Judaism, including wearing a yarmulke. And the inciting incident of the play, for those who have seen it, who haven't seen it, it's just information. If you're going to see it, I don't think it spoils anything, but
Doesn't.
it attracts a kind of violence, and that moment of the play is what begins the whole odyssey that this family goes on and that we go on as an audience member. um,
Right.
I just want to go back with you for a second, because obviously I read 1/10 of the millions and millions of hours of film and television that you've done, and I just not everyone leaves kind of the world of takes if you mess up a performance to come back to the theater. It's scary. It's fulfilling and scary to do a play in a way that other mediums are just a different kind of scary. So if we could just go back for a minute in terms of like your early career and what your dream was as an actor when you started. I
Mm,
remember like you grew up with Eric Stoltz. Um,
hmm.
And I remember you once said that you barely watch TV, which is hilarious because you probably made more hours than any living person I know. But the idea of theater, how did that come to you as a young
It's
kid?
really, it was a really natural, beautiful. I'm the youngest of five kids. Like I said, my father was a World War II. So he wasn't necessarily the most present father. He was a lovely, funny man, but he was not there. So I think I was looking for family, looking for figures in that way. And I was super lucky to be in Santa Barbara in the 70s when there was so much support for theater in the school that I was a seventh grader, went in and was immediately I discovered this theater that was like an 800 seat beautiful theater, and they put on a straight play in the fall and a musical in the spring and then two other shows during the year, and this group, and I was this scrawny little 12-year-old who was looking to find a place to fit in, and the theater was it, and I fell in love with the experience of the theater in an environment where you could go after school, you could go at lunch, you could be part of a play, and then it translated into summers, and we had summer theater. So I that was my kind of church that I found. That was my safe place, and in and that just translated to by the time I got out of high school, I'd done 25 plays, and I'd also started working as an actor at 16. When I got my driver's license, I started driving airsols, and we started driving down to LA to audition for theater, which is where I met your dear old friend Helen Hunt, and ended up on a TV series in my second year of college. But it all came
With
from
Helen,
theater. Yeah, yeah,
right?
with
Your
Helen playing
first
brother
job?
and sister. Yeah.
So crazy.
So but it all comes back to, and I had this experience of doing, because Children of Lesser God was the first time I performed on Broadway. And the first time we went in that theater, I was like, feels just like being at home. Like for me, a big theater was where you played. I know it's space and everything, and people are this in black boxes and small theaters and everything. But, in California, we had these incredible public spaces of big theaters, and we did tours. We were touring Peter Pan and, Oliver in the summer and, groups of 14, 15-year-old kids running around California. So it was like, I equate it sometimes to being like, I don't know, being into basketball and growing up in Indiana. Like, it just was part of, it was a
Set up for
natural
that.
place. It was
Right,
set up for it.
right.
Yeah.
When you look back at ER, like at the time that that show was cast as a pilot, or was it a straight to series?
I know it was a pilot, right. We had to
Who was
get,
the
yeah.
most famous person cast in that pilot at the time?
I probably was at the time because of Top Gun. So
Uh-huh.
I was for movies, but George certainly, George had done a bunch of TV series, but he'd never had any big hit series. But he knew the business of television better than anybody I'd ever met. So,
Because of how
so
he grew up, or just his passion for it?
he had for the 5 years or so before, 6 years before, he'd done a lot of pilots, a lot of series, and he's such a beautiful man, and I think they're always trying to find the right series for him, so he had a lot of experience around that. But I came at it, as an actor I was 29 years old, and I was like done with with working as actor. I thought I'd done all these movies. I'd done Top Gun and gosh, and all these movies. I'd done a series before. I wanted to I wanted to direct, and I thought, that's it. I don't really want to do this as an actor anymore. And then this script came up, and I was like, oh boy. And it was Michael Crichton and Steven Spielberg, and you know, it just read so real. And my agent my manager was just like, you got to do this. And so, I mean, it was a funny thing. And I actually related this to someone recently because I remember having the conversation with Michael Crichton after the show. We did it, became a hit, and we had a Christmas party together. And I related that story, and he goes, that's how life works. When you let go, when you're done, things come to you. And all the kind of, if you're too, I need, I have to, I want, it's not, it doesn't work that way. Things happen when you're looking somewhere else, and that's when you meet the people, your best friends, or something arrives because you're letting the universe reveal it to you, as opposed to the problem of thinking, oh, I can make this happen or I can control this, because no one has ever made a movie, a TV show, or a play that didn't start out thinking, this is going to be great. Like, and some are, but
Right.
they're not always. So,
Yeah.
you have to just be willing to know that it's out of your control.
So in this play, as you described earlier, the audience's reaction, the laughter for sure. There's nothing
Yeah.
lovelier than getting the laughs where you want them. You do sing and you do play piano, and so whatever that fear was, I got to see you do it. But there is also like people to the right and left of me like sharing tissues with each other who came in
Yeah.
strangers to the play, and it's a big beautiful Broadway theater, but it's also like super intimate at the same
Mm.
time. How do you absorb that? How do you experience that? That's must feel like a new
It's
feeling.
it's fantastic because it really is that thing, and I do the same thing. When I go into a theater, I kind of think, "Oh, I'm here private. No one's gonna know I'm, the actor." We're on stage. The second we come off, we're like, "Did you feel that?" You know what the audience is and where they're at. And with this play, what's great is you can feel 2.5 hours into the play a silence that comes over at certain points, and you're like, we're doing this right because they're listening when they need to listen and they're wanting to be there. And like I said, it's a really different thing. But I do believe anybody who has any Jewish experience of friends or themselves or their grandparent, whatever it is, there are just things that are hitting people in a really deep way. And that enthusiasm of talking to, a 78 year 80-year-old woman after who goes like, that was my story. Or, young people going, oh my God, I didn't think about that. And this kind of relationship, because it's such an old story, this experience. And so your question really is about the space and the intimacy. It's great, and and also it's the classic frustration of Broadway where you're like, really, that many cell phones went off during the show. It's crazy. It's
I
just like
know, I
it's
know. And it's a
but
double whammy for you guys because you have two intermissions. So there's two
yeah,
possibilities of people
for
forgetting
everybody to
to
turn
turn it
their
off.
phone. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I know. And you're all, and also like it does attract um beautifully all ages, but there is a generation of people who are coming to see it because they're really seeing themselves reflected,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
it's a shrinking
yeah,
generation in terms of
yeah,
who's left, and
yeah, yeah.
they are wearing headsets to hear, and their children and grandchildren are not next to them to remind them how to turn their phones off. So
Right, right.
I guess you
Yeah,
just
and
go
it's
with
and
it.
it's a but it's a powerful time because we are living in a time right now where as I walk to work, I'll go through Union Square and there could be a pro-Palestinian demonstration going on that unintentionally is saying basically death to Jews without, under the guise of like, oh no, we're just against, but like there's such a disconnect that's happening in the world right now in relation to hatred that is really wild. And you know you want people to keep learning and keep experiencing, to know that it's not as simple as people want to make it out to be, the situation that's happening in the world right now. And and you only get that way by telling truths.
Well, also, what's so incredible about getting to be in the kind of work that you are doing is you're always learning, right? Like there are some jobs that there might be little like, wait, the knob came out bigger than it's supposed to, and now we have to remake all the knobs for the dresser. Also, we need knobs on our dressers. This is not knocking the fact that
Right.
everything out there is necessary, but what a like incredible thing to just expand as a human each time you take on a role, and you must be learning so much and absorbing
Yeah.
so much in the process.
It's like my friend Brian Dories, who started Theater of War. I mean, there's a reason why the Greeks built the theaters next to the hospital, because to have a group experience of people together hearing stories is as important a part of healing as anything else. And that's the only way we heal, is to connect with others through story and relationship, to understand things in a deeper and different way. And that's what being human is. Like, there's theater didn't die away because, for no reason. It's because we need it. We need to share and understand things as a group with others.
Yeah, and it is still not lost on me post COVID. Every time I go into a theater, it was unclear what theater would look like, right? Would it
Right.
still come back as like a necessary communal art form? And it has. Before I let you go to your theater, is there a little known fact about you that you can share?
Um, let's see. I was on a ballet scholarship when I was 16. I don't know if anybody knew that. But it was a funny thing, actually, and I share it with Eric Stoltz because we loved theater. We did musicals, and but we totally got into ballet this one year, and we were like two 16-year-old kids in, like, I don't know, math class or whatever. No, it was some humanities class, and some girl, a woman, was a young, one of our classmates was doing a demonstration on ballet, and Eric and I would sneak off to this ballet class, like, 3 days a week on the scholarship. And at the exact moment while we were while we were sitting in the class during this ballet demonstration, we both, like, kind of looked over at each other and went, "Ballet sucks." It's what we said, like, to try and act like, oh yeah, we would
We
never.
are not interested in
Yeah,
that.
we are
That is
not. It
not
was just a
something for
thing.
us,
Yeah, like, it's
actually, but
just
we are leaving here to do this. Very basic.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
wow. Well, I really look forward to something that you do in the future that can combine your love of acting and your love with ballet. I feel like we've yet to
Yeah, I
see
mean, I certainly can't. I'm not a ballet dancer now, but I do. I mean, movement and rhythm and dance and all of it is just so connected, as you know, as an actor, that that's everybody has a rhythm,
yeah.
and that's what's fun to find.
Well, apparently, you have a voice and some piano. Piano. I hope you keep going with it. Ari Brand is an incredible teacher.
He's unbelievable. He's the
Truly.
most amazing pianist I've heard. He is incredible. I mean, we do a warm up, and we try to get him to play every time because he'll just start doing jazz. He's an incredible pianist.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
so
his
great.
legacy. I mean, his father was
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
most
No, I know, I know.
incredible.
I hope he can continue to develop that
I
show of
know.
his on
I
that.
know. It's
Did
so
you see it?
beautiful. I did. It's so beautiful. And Ari looks so much like his dad. We're talking about a
Yeah,
piece that Ari wrote, sort of honoring his father who died way too young, but was, I believe, from
yeah,
Israel.
yeah.
And
He
one
was
of the
born in
most
Israel.
extraordinary pianists of his day.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, anyway, Anthony Edwards, thank you for being on the podcast today. How fun to catch up with you and
My
have a
pleasure.
wonderful
Really
show.
fun.
All
Yeah,
right.
congratulations to you.
Thank you. Take care. I will see
Thanks.
you soon.
Okay,
Goodbye. Bye.
goodbye.